Download and upload more than ever before with an ultra-fast fiber connection. With 3 simple steps, you can be the one with an SLT fiber optic connection. Visit slt.lk.
In clarification, Industry and Commerce Minister RISHAD BATHIUDEEN admits he wanted 25 acres of land, but says he did not request a plot from within the Vilpattu National Park. Strong move. MP Sumandran threatens to take Sri Lanka before the International Criminal Court if the government fails to bring in foreign judges.
We, the Tamil people, will be left with no alternative but to take steps to move Sri Lanka to the International Criminal Court.
Successful execution. Sri Lanka tests artificial rain for the first time over the Mount Sakale Reservoir. Last chance. EU leaders issue an ultimatum to Britain. UK gets 2 weeks extension to withdraw from the EU bloc. All this and much more coming up on First at 9 this Friday, the 22nd of March 2019.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Well, a very good evening and welcome to First at 9 and AdaDerana 24, Sri Lanka's news channel. I'm Katrina Chang. Now on to your top story tonight. Minister of Trade and Commerce RISHAD BATHIUDEEN refuted allegations made against him with regard to the deforestation of the Vilpattu National Park, calling it a mudslinging campaign. The minister, speaking in Parliament today, further added that the ministry requested a plot of 25 acres in close proximity to the Vilpattu National Park and stressed that the proposed industrial city is not within the forest reserve. The deforestation at Vilattikulam in Vilpattu, which is allegedly carried out by certain politicians, was brought to light by AdaDerana on several occasions. An environmental organisation called Protect Sri Lanka in a media briefing yesterday alleged that Trade and Commerce Minister RISHAD BATHIUDEEN made a request to set up an industrial city at a forest reserve in close proximity to the Vilpattu National Park. They also claimed that preliminary work on the allocation of land has already commenced. The petition filed against Minister RISHAD BATHIUDEEN seeking the prohibition of deforestation at Vilattikulam Forest Reserve in Vilpattu National Park has been scheduled to be heard on the 28th of June. The petition was taken up before the Court of Appeal Judge Aruna Obesekara today. Meanwhile, the deforestation at Vilpattu National Park was raised in Parliament today as well.
විල්පත්තුව ගැන ලොකු බොරු චෝදනාවක් ඊයේ පෙරේදා එල්ල වෙනවා. මම ඔබතුමා දන්නවා පුත්තලම අරුවක්කාඩුවල ළඟදී ලොකු ප්‍රොජෙක්ට් එකක් එනවා මිලියන් 7,900ක් වෙන් කරලා තියෙනවා කියලා. ඒකට මම කිව්වා මේක පොඩක් සොයා බලන්න. ඒකෙන් පසුව තමයි ආයි පටන් ගත්තා විල්පත්තු විනාශය කරනවා කියලා ආයි පටන් අරන් තියෙන්නේ. මේ මඩ ප්‍රචාරයේ සම්පූර්ණ පොරුවක් ඒක. මේක විපක්ෂ නෙමෙයි මේක ගෙනියන්නේ. මුල්ලිකොළම නෙමෙයි කොණ්ඩච්චි කියලා මුසලී ප්‍රාදේශීය ලේකම් කොට්ටාසිය ගම්මානයක් තියෙනවා. ඒ ගම්මාන අතුල අක්කර 25ක් ඉල්ලලා තියෙනවා. ඒ ගම්මාන අතුල අක්කර 25ක් ඉල්ලලා අවුරුදු දෙකමාරක් වෙනවා. තාම දීලා නැහැ. මේ ඉදම ඔෆිෂියලි බාර දුන්නොත් තමයි අපි කර්මාන්තපුරයක් කරන්න පුළුවන්. එහෙම නැතුව සුද්ධ කරන්නේ නැහැ දැන්. ඒවා සම්පූර්ණ බොරුවක් 25යි. අක්කර 25ක් ඉල්ලලා තියෙනවා. ඊයේ වාර්තාව දැන් කරගෙන යනවා. ඒකේ සාර්ථක කියලා දුන්නොත් විතරයි දෙන්නේ. නෑ. කොණ්ඩච්චි ග්‍රාම සේවක කොට්ටාසි ලක්ෂිතයක් නෑ.
Meanwhile, Venerable Pahiyangal Anandasagara Thera, who revealed the plan of the construction of an industrial city within the reserve, said the minister's statement in Parliament was false.
වගකීමෙන් අපි කියනවා අක්කර 75ක් ඉල්ලලා තියෙනවා. ඒ අනුව තමයි අක්කර 50ක් කර්මාන්තපුරයටත් අක්කර 25ක් ඔහුටත් අක්කර 75 වෙන් වෙන්නේ. මේ 75ම වෙන් කරගෙන තියෙන්නේ රක්ෂිත වනාන්තර පද්ධතිය ඇතුලේ. අධි සංවේදී පරිසර කලාපයක් ඇතුලේ කොහොමද කර්මාන්තපුරයක් හදන්නේ? අපි අතිගරු ජනාධිපතිවරයාට කියා සිටිනවා වහාම මේ සඳහා මැදිහත් වෙලා ඉල්ලලා තියෙන ඉඩම් සම්බන්ධ කර්මාන්තපුරය හදන්න යන එක වහාම නවත්තන්න.
However, Sri Lanka Air Force issuing a media communique today said that they have been monitoring the area using drone cameras since 2015, however did not find any further deforestation of the Vilpattu Forest Reserve. Sri Lanka agreeing to co-sponsor resolution 40/1 attracted a whirlwind of comments today.
with TNA parliamentarian M.S. Sumandran in particular threatening to take Sri Lanka to the International Criminal Court if the government fails to adhere to the commitments of including independent foreign judges in the judicial system. Also commenting on the matter, former permanent representative of Sri Lanka to UN, Palda Kohon, expressed uncertainty over the country's way forward, adding that co-sponsoring Resolution 40/1 will continue to be a burden on the current government as well as the future government.
Sri Lanka should have very firmly and categorically reserved its position with regard to some key aspects of the resolution. The aspects are the ones that require Sri Lanka to amend its constitution. There are only allegations. The way forward is fraught with uncertainty because the resolution which we co-sponsored, which we adhered to voluntarily, will continue to be a burden on the current government and on any future governments. The High Commissioner, I believe, went way beyond her authority by intervening in Sri Lanka's internal appointments. Human Rights Council resolutions have no legally binding effect. They cannot be implemented by the Council, nor can they be implemented by the High Commissioner. The more attention we pay in this sense, the more problems that we create for ourselves.
First at 9 also questioned non-cabinet minister Sujiva Senasinghe on the matter.
Anybody can make allegations, but by allegations we don't go. And even human rights, nobody has told us how to protect our human rights. It's our duty to protect human rights of all citizens. If UN or UN Security Council is telling us to have our judicial process in the right direction, I don't think they have to tell us that, but it's our duty to get that sorted out by us. But if somebody is helping us do that, I don't see any injustice in that as well. There's no hybrid court system. We have not agreed, and we have vehemently rejected that notion, even the idea. You can remember when Mr. Rajapaksa was in power, he agreed to adhere to everything by the UN Security Council. When Ban Ki-moon came in, he agreed to actually implement the 13th amendment, the provincial council system fully. So we have not done that, and we have done what is good for the country.
Speaking during today's parliamentary session, TNA parliamentarian M.S. Sumandran threatened to take Sri Lanka before the International Criminal Court if there is a breach of commitment in including independent foreign judges in the judicial mechanism.
I am sad that the foreign minister has stated that there is no space for foreign judges to participate in the Sri Lankan judicial process. That is false. If that was so, this could not have been signed by Sri Lanka. At the time it was signed, 2015, Honorable Vijayadasa Rajapaksa, on behalf of the government of Sri Lanka as the Minister of Justice, agreed that it is possible under the Constitution of Sri Lanka to have foreign judges. It is upon his agreement that 30/1 was signed. In fact, it is the Honorable Vijayadasa Rajapaksa presented a private member's bill as an opposition member for the investigation and inquiry into judges of Supreme Court during the Chief Justice Shirani Bandaranayake impeachment saga, which provided for foreign judges. If Honorable Vijayadasa Rajapaksa thought that was unconstitutional, he couldn't have done that. The government of Sri Lanka has made these commitments, not once, not twice, now 3 times in writing. But if the government of Sri Lanka does not adhere to this commitment of including independent foreign judges in the judicial mechanism, then we, the Tamil people, will be left with no alternative but to take steps to move Sri Lanka to the International Criminal Court or some other entirely international judicial mechanism.
The whereabouts of the proposed construction of a $3.85 billion Mirichavale oil refinery has come under much speculation by various factions. Today, however, Indian media outlets say, The Hindu says, that an Indian politician too is involved in the record-breaking foreign direct investment in Sri Lanka after reports emerged that Oman's oil ministry denied its involvement in the project yesterday.
In an article published by The Hindu today, stated that a Singapore-based company in which stakes are held by the family members of former Union Minister of State S. Jagat Rakshagan of the DMK has been linked to a record foreign direct investment of $3.85 billion in an oil refinery in Sri Lanka. The article went on to say that the Singapore company Silver Park International Pte Limited is putting 70% of the share capital, a total of $1,887 million, in the project, running into billions of dollars, while the remaining nearly $2,000 million is to be raised as loan capital. The Hindu also highlighted that Silver Park International, named by the BOI, is registered with Singapore's National Regulator Accounting and Corporate Regulatory Authority, with 3 of its 4 directors, Jagat Rakshagan, Sunip Anand, Jagat Rakshagan Srinisha and Jagat Rakshagan Anusuya, listed with a Chennai address. They are the son, daughter and wife of Jagat Rakshagan, who is the DMK's Arakonam Lok Sabha candidate. A senior government source in Colombo told The Hindu, however, that they are aware of the Singapore company's links to an Indian business interest. The agreement has been signed by one Jagat Rakshagan. Meanwhile, Deputy Minister of Development Strategies and International Trade Nalin Bandara moved to clarify the current status of the oil refinery project today as well.
මොකද මේ 24 වෙනිදා එහෙම නැත්නම් අනිද්දා අපි හම්බන්තොට ප්‍රදේශයේ විශාල තෙල් පිරිප හදුවක වැඩ ආරම්භ කරනවා. ඩොලර් මිලියන 3850ක දැවැන්ත ආයෝජනයක්. මේකේ ප්‍රධාන ආයෝජකයා සිංගප්පූරු සමාගමක්. ඊට අමතරව ඕමාන් රජයේ ආයෝජනයක් තියෙනවා 130ක. ප්‍රධාන ආයෝජකයා දැනටමත් ඩොලර් මිලියන 4ක් අපේ ආයෝජන මණ්ඩලයට ගෙවිය යුතුව තියෙනවා. ඒකෙන් 110ක් ගෙවලා ඉවරයි. හම්බන්තොටට එන්නේ. හම්බන්තොටට අප ආපුවාම අපි ඔයගොල්ලන්ට කවුද ආයෝජනය කරන්න කියන එක බලා ගන්න අවශ්‍ය කටයුතු කරන්න. සමහර දේශපාලඥයින්ට මේ ව්‍යාපෘතිය දිරව ගන්න බෑ. මේ අවුරුදු එකමාරක් දෙකක් ඇතුළත ආපු ව්‍යාපෘතියක් තමයි පසුගිය මාස කිහිපය ඇතුළත අපි වේගවත් කරලා ඒ ව්‍යාපෘතිය ක්‍රියාත්මක වන තැනට අරගෙන ආවිලා තියෙනවා. ඒ වගේම සිංගප්පූරු ශ්‍රී ලංකා ගිවිසුම අත්සන් කරාට පස්සේ මලික් සමරවික්‍රමතුමා මේකට මූලිකත්වය අරන් කටයුතු කරා. මේක වේගවත් වුණා.
The National Movement for Consumer Rights Protection alleges that the proposals to build a new power plant are implemented due to private benefits of officials. In the meantime, the Ceylon Electricity Board successfully carried out the pilot project to artificially create a rain in Mount Sakale. Following the breakdown of one of the generators at the Norachole coal power plant last Monday, many parts of the country experienced power interruptions despite the Electricity Board announcing the issue was addressed. The National Movement for Consumer Rights Protection pointed out that this situation had arisen due to the failure in implementing proposals put forward to fulfill the electricity demand of the country. Today, 4,000 megawatt-hours of the country's annual electricity requirement is generated through power plants. However, 35% of the government's cost in power generation is allocated to purchase 900 additional megawatt-hours from private power plants. The National Movement for Consumer Rights Protection also alleges that although this cost can be reduced through proposed measures, officials have failed to do so. In a backdrop where the existing dry weather has caused water levels of reservoirs to decrease, a pilot project to test artificial rain for the first time in the country was successfully carried out today. The project to induce artificial rain at the catchment areas of the Mount Sakale Reservoir was carried out by the CEB with moderate rainfall experienced for around 45 minutes. An aircraft of the Sri Lanka Air Force was used to spray the chemicals on the clouds around 8,000 feet above the reservoir. President Maithripala Sirisena says that 20% of the wealth generated by large corporates should be trickled down to the poor. Speaking at an event today, the President added that the government must introduce policies that enable equal distribution of wealth if the country is to move forward. The concluding event of the Let's Get Together for the Country project took place in Puttalam under the patronage of President Maithripala Sirisena today.
අපේ රට අපි පිළිගන්න ඕන අපි හොඳ තැනක නෙවෙයි ඉන්නේ. මේ රටේ ප්‍රධානම ප්‍රශ්නය දිලිඳුකම. රාජ්‍ය මැදිහත් වීමේ තිබෙන හැකියාවන් දක්ෂතාවයන් වගේම අඩුපාඩු සහ දුර්වලතාවයන් තිබෙනවා. අපි රාජ්‍ය මැදිහත් වීම තව කාර්යක්ෂම කරන්න ඕනේ. මගේ පෞද්ගලික අදහස නම් රාජ්‍ය ප්‍රතිපත්තියක නැහැ. මේ රටේ මිලියන් 20ක ආර්ථිකය පාලනය කරන මහා ධනපති සමාගම් 20කට අඩු සංඛ්‍යාවේ ඒ මහා ධනය යම් ප්‍රමාණයක් ජනතාවට පහළට එන්න ඕනේ. රාජ්‍ය ප්‍රතිපත්තිය තුල එවැනි තීන්දුව తీරන ගැනීමේ අවශ්‍යතාවය මම හිතන්නේ ඉදිරියේදී එයි. එහෙම නැත්නම් මේ රටේ ආර්ථිකය ගොඩනැගීම තරම් පහසු කාර්යයක් වන්නේ නැහැ. මම රජයටත් යෝජනා කරනවා ඇමති මණ්ඩලයට පුත්තලම දිස්ත්‍රික්කයේ සංවර්ධනයට විශේෂ දිස්ත්‍රික්කයේ සීමා වූ සංවර්ධන ව්‍යාපෘතියක අවශ්‍යතාවය. මම මේ සැලැස්ම හදලා ඉදිරිපත් කරන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා.
Police resorted to baton charge as a measure to disperse protesters demonstrating in PUTTALAM against the proposed sanitary landfill site in Aruwakkalu. Demonstrations commenced early this morning as protesters requested an opportunity to meet with President Maithripala Sirisena, who was visiting PUTTALAM today. A large number of protesters gathered along Seva Mawatha in PUTTALAM to protest against the proposed garbage dump. However, the police baton charged the protesters following a tense situation during the protest. It is reported that 2 women and a young boy are currently hospitalized following the attack, and the director of the PUTTALAM-based hospital, Dr. Sumit Attanayake, said that their situation is not grave. Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe insists that the government has not betrayed the sovereignty of the country at Geneva. He made this remark at the 61st commemoration ceremony of the first Sri Lankan Prime Minister, Honourable D.S. Senanayake.
The 61st commemoration ceremony of the first Sri Lankan Prime Minister, Honourable D.S. Senanayake, was held at the Independence Square today with the participation of the United National Party led by Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe.
අපි මේ රටේ ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදය ක්‍රියාත්මක කරනවා. ආරක්ෂාංශවල හරි LTT හරි කවුරු හරි නීතිය කඩ කරලා තියෙනවනේ ඒකට විරුද්ධව නඩු දානවා. සීමා බණ්ඩාරනායක මැතිණිය, රණසිංහ ප්‍රේමදාස ජනාධිපතිතුමා, චන්ද්‍රිකා කුමාරතුංග ජනාධිපතිනිය ඒ කාලෙදී අපරාධ නීතිය උල්ලංඝනය කරපු ආරක්ෂා හමුදාවේ සමාජිකයන්ට විරුද්ධව නඩු දැම්මා. ගිය ආණ්ඩුවෙන්ම නඩු දාලා තියෙන ඒවා අපි ක්‍රියා කරලා බලන්නම් කියලා. ඒත් ඒ ඔක්කොම කරන්නේ ලංකාවේ උසාවියේ. අපි ගිහින් බන්දේසික දාලා කිව්වේ නෑ මෙන්න අපේ නඩු ගිහින් අහන්න කියලා. යුද්ධ අධිකරණ වලින් ජාත්‍යන්තරින් මේ ස්ථාවරය නිසා ඒ අය කියන්නේ අද ලංකාවේ ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදය ස්ථාපනය වෙලා කියලා. ඉතින් සමහරවිට පුදුමයි මේ අය කියනකොට රණවිරුවන් ජෙනීවාගෙන අපි රණවිරුවන් ගෙනියන්නත් වැඩක් නැහැ. අපිට උවමනා නැහැ. අපි කළා තියෙන්නේ අපේ රණවිරුවන් එක්සත් ජාතීන්ගේ සාම හමුදාව හැටියට මාලි රටට එවලා තියෙනවා. අන්න ඒකයි අපි කළා තියෙන්නේ. ඒ තමයි DSN එක මැතිතුමා අපි ඉගෙන ගත්තා. ඉතින් අද විශේෂ මැතිතුමා ගුණසම්පන්න අවස්ථාවේදී මේ ජෙනීවා වලදී අපි අපේ පරමාධිපත්‍ය තහවුරු කළා.
A Sri Lankan family who was waiting for the remains of a deceased female family member from Saudi Arabia was instead sent the remains of an Indian national today. A resident at Maliyadde in Mavanalla claimed that his family was waiting for the body of his wife, as they were informed that she passed away in Saudi Arabia. According to family members, Bandara Manike had left for Saudi Arabia in December 2015 and last contacted the family on the 12th of last month. Accordingly, when they reached the Bandaranaike International Airport to receive the body yesterday, they had instead been sent a body of an Indian male. Meanwhile, Indian media had reported that a family who waited for a body of their son who passed away due to a heart attack received a body of a Sri Lankan woman. The Department of Meteorology today issued a heat advisory for the northwestern province and districts of Mana, Kilinochchi, Mullaitivu, Vavuniya, Trincomalee, Hambantota and Monaragala. The advisory said that according to the heat index, it is expected to increase up to extreme caution level in most parts of northwestern province and the above mentioned districts during tomorrow. Meanwhile, the department also stated that thunderstorms accompanied by lightning and thunder are likely to occur in Sabragamo Central and Uva provinces. It further said that temporarily strong gusty winds of up to 70 to 80 km per hour are also possible during these thunder showers. Now, according to a latest report, apparently Sri Lankans are not as happy as they were last year. According to the latest report issued this year, the Sri Lanka ranked 130th with a score of 4.366, slipping 14 notches from 116th last year in the World Happiness Report 2018, which ranks 156 countries by their happiness levels. This year, the report, which was released in advance of UN World Happiness Day on March 20th, focused on happiness and the community. how happiness has evolved over the past dozen years with a focus on the technologies, social norms, government policies that has driven those changes. The 2019 report ranked Finland at the top of the list, followed closely by Denmark, Norway, Iceland, the Netherlands, Switzerland, Sweden, New Zealand, Canada and Austria in the top 10. In South Asia, India slipped 7 spots from last year to rank 140 on the happiness index. Pakistan ranked 67th, Bhutan 95th, Nepal 100th, Bangladesh at 155th, and Afghanistan ranked at 144th in the bottom. And with that, we cross over to short commercial breaks, so make sure you stay tuned for more news on the other side.
You are watching Sri Lanka's #1 news channel. This is AdaDerana 24.
Sri Lanka signed a $989 million project loan with China for the construction of the Central Expressway today. The Exim Bank of China has agreed to provide the concessional loan covering 85% of the project cost of Section 1 of the Central Expressway from Kadawata to Meerigama, and official statement said. Section 2 of the expressway has already commenced construction with financial from local commercial banks. The expressway connects the capital Colombo with Kurunegala and Kandy. The expressway connects to the outer circular highway in Colombo, the expressway to the main airport in Katunayaka, and the southern expressway to Hambantota. This is the largest loan Sri Lanka has received from the Exim Bank of China. Sri Lanka's nationwide inflation in February 2019, determined under the National Consumer Price Index, rose to 2.4% from 1.2% recorded in January on a year-on-year basis. The Department of Census and Statistics has stated that the NCPI for all items for the month of February 2019 marginally decreased to 126.7 from 127.3 in January. The decrease in the index point by 0.47% was due to the expenditure value decrease of food items by 1% and expenditure value increase of non-food items by 0.54%. Year-on-year inflation of food group has increased from 4.8% in January 2019 to 2.9% in February of this year, and that of non-food group has also increased from 6.5% to 6.7% during this month. Contributions to the inflation in February 2019 from food group and non-food group are -1.32% and 3.71% respectively. The moving average inflation for the month of February this year is 1.7%. The corresponding rate for the month of January 2019 was 1.8%. Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe says that the government is planning to introduce a national pension scheme in a bid to attract employment to the private sector. Speaking at the Fireside Chat 2019 recently, the Prime Minister voiced his concerns over the growing demand towards public sector employment owing to its pension scheme, which he says poses issues when it comes to job creation for the government.
Our people are looking unemployment, not looking the employment, because they have to see that this employment is creating or not. But you have to see the employment, because you can get the EPF, ETF contribution. Because of that is the number, is the employment rate. You know, even the USA, they implement the taxes to create more jobs. Eka karanna gihilla වෙන රටවල් එක තරහ වෙනවා because of the private investment. අපේ ආණ්ඩුව private investment එක තරහ වෙනවා. At least every year you have to create 120,000 jobs. ඒක කරන්න බැරි නම් economic grow වෙන්නේ නැහැ.
On the job generation, one of the factors we see as politicians is that it's more a question of underemployment than unemployment. If you look at those who want to have employment and you offer them employment in the private sector, they won't. The demand today is for a pension. So you can earn what you want, even rural economy, some of them can. But there is a demand for security, demand for pension. So the demand for pension, jobs with pensions have really put pressure on all the politicians. While you would send them to other areas, some will go in, some won't. We have to now look at what we are going to do on that sector. As Dhammika said, okay, then we have to get into a national pension scheme in the private sector also, because these are some of the issues that we find.
The Australia Price Index fell 0.56% to 5,540.05, its lowest close since 24th of December in 2012. The market turnover was 522.7 million rupees, less than last year's daily average of 834 million rupees. Foreign investors bought a net 141.7 million rupees worth of shares today, but they have been net sellers of 6 billion rupees worth of equity so far this year. With that, let's now take a look at how the stocks performed during the week.
During the week, the ASPI lost 1.4%. Similarly, the S&P SL20 decreased by 1.3%. The average daily turnover for the week was down from last week to 477 million rupees. Furthermore, foreigners remained active for the week, closing as net sellers, where foreign sales accounted for 59% of the total weekly turnover. A net foreign outflow of nearly 81 million rupees was recorded for the week.
Meanwhile, the rupee ended slightly weak at 179 rupees and 78 cents against the US dollar today. The rupee has climbed 2.58% this year as exporters converted dollars and foreign investors purchased government securities amid stabilizing investor confidence after the country repaid a 1 billion sovereign bond in mid-January. With that, let's now take a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee performed against other major currencies around the world. Well, we have the latest on the Brexit story coming up next, so make sure you stay tuned for that.
You are watching Sri Lanka's #1 news channel. This is AdaDerana 24.
Who gathered in Brussels today said Britain had a final chance to leave the bloc in an orderly fashion, having given the UK Parliament an April 12 deadline to offer a new plan or choose to quit the bloc without a treaty. Arriving for a second day of a summit dominated by talks over Britain's departure, Belgium's Prime Minister said he hoped for a rational decision by British lawmakers to back the withdrawal treaty that may conclude with Brussels. Preparations for a no deal in which Britain would face sudden trade barriers and restrictions on business was still underway. The UK's departure date had originally been set for the 29th of March. If May can get her withdrawal deal through Parliament next week, that date will be pushed back to 22nd of May to give time for to pass the necessary legislation. If the Prime Minister can't get the deal through, the UK will have to propose a way forward by April 12th for EU leaders to consider. European Council President Donald Tusk said all Brexit options would remain open until then. An explosion at a pesticide plant in eastern China has killed 47 people and injured more than 600. The latest casualties in a series of industrial accidents that has angered the public. The blast occurred yesterday at the Zhenjiang Industrial Park in the city of Yangcheng in Jiangsu province. Survivors were taken to 16 hospitals with 640 people being treated for injuries and 32 in critical condition. The fire at a plant owned by the Tianjia Chemical Plant Company spread to neighboring factories. Children at a nearby kindergarten were also hurt in the incident. The cause of the explosion is being investigated by the company, which produces more than 30 organic chemical compounds. Some highly flammable has been cited and fined for work safety violations in the past. Well, on sports news, the second T20 international of the three-match T20 series between Sri Lanka and South Africa will begin at Super Sport Park Cricket Stadium shortly. Winning the toss, Sri Lanka has opted to bowl against the Proteas. Now moving on to another news overseas, Olympic champion gymnast Simone Biles believes US gymnastics is moving in a positive direction after the dark place it found itself in a year ago following sex abuse scandal. Now speaking ahead of the superstars of the gymnastics event taking place in London tomorrow, Biles revealed Tokyo 2020 will be her last Olympics.
Simone Biles dominated the 2016 Olympics with 4 golds and became the first woman to win 4 World Championships all-around titles in 2018. The American, the most decorated gymnast in World Championships history, says minor injuries are taking a toll, adding that she definitely planned for the Tokyo Olympics to be her last. Biles, heralded as the greatest gymnast of all time, also spoke about the current state of US gymnastics after the dark place it found itself an year ago following a sex abuse scandal.
Yeah, I think it's going in a positive direction, so I think that's good, and we're all very hopeful that they're making the right decision so that we can kind of get out of that dark place.
Yeah. Biles received widespread admiration when going public about being abused by Nassar and was, along with other victims, awarded the Arthur Ashe Courage Award.
And with that, we end this edition of First at 9. Thank you for joining us and have a pleasant evening.